Oh, this is Elaine Williams with Captivate the Mic. This is a podcast to help you become a more effective speaker, communicator, whether you're doing videos, whether you're on stage, whether you're podcast guesting. I am using my 50 million years of experience and having amazing guests. You are in for such a treat. This woman, I want to introduce Julie Cooley to you. She is a speaker manager. She's also a professional speaker, and she's the co-director of the Speaker Academy for Colorado NSA, which is National Speakers Association, if you don't know that. And I'm just delighted to have you, Julie. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate it.
And I'll just tell everybody, I've been performing my whole life. I've been a professional speaker since the early 2000s. And I meet a lot of people who do a lot of blowing smoke up your you know what. And one of the things that had me want to stay connected with Julie was you were just laying down some wisdom and some truth. And I told some of my clients, you have to get connected with this woman because you really know your stuff and you know the insides of the whole speaking world. And, a lot of people who follow me, they're either coaches and wanting to expand their business by speaking, or they're speakers who want to get paid speaking gigs. And there's a lot in that umbrella. And Julie, why don't you tell us, first of all, I'd love to know how you got into this. If you could tell us a little bit about your entree.
Absolutely. So, like you, I've been a performer for most of my life. I wanted to be a singer, and we all know how easy that is to
Ah!
get into that profession. So, I love the stage, but God had other plans. So, singing didn't quite pan out. And for speaking, I didn't ever think of it really as a career. I joined Toastmasters in Lord, probably 14 years ago. My manager at the time, I was in the corporate world, had said, "Hey, you're doing some training for us. I think Toastmasters would be good. Even though you know how to speak, it'll get you to the next level." And I loved Toastmasters. And that's when people first came up to me and said, "Hey, you could do this." And I was also in a Buddhist group where I was leading the singing because my Dharma
Yeah.
teacher found out pretty fast that I knew chanting. I almost became a cantor in the Hebrew tradition. So he called me their cantor. And then I started leading workshops for them too. So facilitating workshops, except my teacher didn't like me too much sometimes because he called me spiritually promiscuous because I would do Don Miguel Ruiz. I wouldn't stick to just Buddhism, even though I would do definitely some Buddhism. But my take was if it helps my audience, I don't care what tradition it comes from. So I really love speaking between the Buddhist group where I was facilitating workshops and Toastmasters. And then I heard about NSA, the National Speakers Association. So I was in Connecticut at the time, and they had a less than robust chapter. It was a smaller chapter. I attended a lot of their meetings because the president at the time brought in some amazing speakers. But I knew about Colorado even when I was in Connecticut, and I'm like, I'm holding out for Colorado. So when we moved to Colorado in 2020, started attending their meetings, went through their speaker academy in 2023, and then volunteered immediately the year after to help the director and became co-director.
That's so cool. I love that. I love hearing people's stories. And you wanted to be a singer, and then you found a way to express that. I just love that. That's my mission is to help heal the world with love and laughter, one joke, one video, one story, one speech at a time. And I think I know I help people come back to their voice. And that sounds like that happened for you. So I love that. I love that so much. So, Julie, when we spoke before, you were talking about let's break some of the myths. Let's just break it down, right? So, I know I was at Podfest in January, and there was a person there who was like, "I can help you make $10,000. You can get a $10,000 gig in less than a month." And it just bothers me because I feel like, oh no, people are going in with these high expectations. And have I made, I did make 6,500 for one of my speeches, but I've been performing my whole life unless you already have a lot of chops. So anyway, can you speak to that when you hear those crazy promises?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who take advantage of people who want to speak, and they'll make these grandiose promises. I saw on Facebook somebody's, oh, if you're not making $25,000 a speech, you're doing it wrong. And I'm like, oh my dearest God, I hope nobody's falling for that. You hear about it because you hear about Les Brown, you hear about Tony Robbins, you hear about, wow, Damon John, he makes $30,000 a speech. I
Right,
can do that. Yeah, you're not Damon John.
right,
And there are a few outliers. I will say there are a couple people I've heard about that out the gate were able to command that, but that is the exception. That is not the rule. And we do have one person in our chapter who just does keynote speaking, but he's a famous football player, Carl
right.
Mecklenburg from the Broncos. Yes, he's got the name, he's got the reps like you. He did he had a pre-career that people find very
Interesting.
appealing that they're willing to pay a lot of money for. So, folks like that, yes, they can do it. But your average speaker, no matter how good you are, you're going to have to do the reps. And I've had people say, oh, I want to command $7,500 a speech. And I'm like, nobody knows who you are. You
Right.
don't have a target audience. You haven't done the reps. You don't have the connections. It takes a lot, especially now. Speaking is it's similar to the arts, acting, comedians, singing, dancing, in that first of all, it's very subjective. Second of all, anybody can, there's no barrier to entry. Anybody can say, hey, I'm a singer, I'm a speaker, but you have to do the reps, you have to get yourself known. And these days, it's not about what you know, it's not about how good you are, it's not even about who you know, it's about who knows you. And you have to work really hard to be visible, get that expertise out there. That when they're planning a conference, it's not like you're throwing email after email, phone call after phone call. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We have a great conference coming up and we want somebody entertaining and who's going to help people in front of the camera. Let's call Elaine. That's the ideal. But that takes years. And I was told, like, I went to massage therapy school too, so that's a whole nother story.
Wow, Julie, what a story. I love it.
But they tell you it will take about 3 years before you will break even. Of course, they didn't tell me that till my last semester. Same thing with speaking. It's going to take you with hard work, with doing the right things, with making the right connections, with the reps, with the video, with the website, everything you need. It's going to take about 3 years, before you really get that momentum going. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that they have the stars in their eyes. And, oh, if I just take this course and I had the website and I had the demo reel and I had the book, people are just going to flock to me. And that's not how it happens.
I love that. It makes me think when I was a new stand-up comedian in New York City, they have all of these, come do this show, get in front of the booker for Letterman. And it's, first of all, it's like the assistant's assistant. Second of all, if you're new, you don't want to be seen yet. So yeah, it's interesting. What I have found, like I grew up performing, singing, dancing, acting, all the things, voiceover, commercials. And then when I became a life coach, I knew, oh, I need to learn how to speak as Elaine because I didn't know how to not be like musical theater. So I started going to Toastmasters and I remember doing my icebreaker, which is like the first one you do. And I remember sitting down and I felt this vibe, like my body was like, you're supposed to be doing this. I felt like my soul was quivering. I had goosebumps and I was like, okay, this is cool. And I'm grateful that I knew, okay, I need to keep getting up in front of people. I knew that was what I needed to do to get up as Elaine, the coach, thought leader, speaker versus acting. And so one of the things I always encourage my clients is like, go practice. And there's a million ways, right? And as a comedian, you get really good at, I'd be like, hey, can you give me 5 minutes? I need to run my set. Thank you to all the people who listen to me. And now a quick message. I get it. You're super busy. You're super committed. You are speaking to grow your business, or maybe you're in the corporate world and you want to grow your career, and you know that there are some things you're doing vocally and with your body language that don't serve you. My name's Elaine, and I've helped hundreds of people just like you become more powerful communicators. There are so many things we don't realize that could be dissipating our energy. And with a few tweaks, you can become a rock star. Whether you're speaking in front of 5,000 people or a room of five, I can help you become a more effective speaker. If this resonates with you, please reach out. All of my scheduling stuff is in the show notes. And now back to the show. So many ways. Obviously, going to the Speaker Academy is awesome. I do think Toastmasters is awesome for a while, but I do think it can pigeonhole some people too. So it's like it's a bridge, but don't get stuck on that bridge, in my opinion. Obviously, hiring a speaker coach, as either one of us, would be great. And there's still a lot of other ways that you can do your reps, as you mentioned, right? I did train the trainer with Peak Potentials. I don't know if you've heard of them. And we went through this whole intensive, and then we would meet once a month and practice doing the train the trainer stuff, facilitating, putting people in pairs, opening, closing, all the things. And that was free. But it was so cool because we were all really committed to grow as facilitators. And then I always tell people too, like stage time. So even though video is different than live, it can still be good practice because there's the pressure of the camera and the lights. And it's a little different than working the room, but it's still good practice. Do you have any other tips to add on to for that, Julie, or anything else?
There's so many, trust me, there are plenty of places you can speak for free. That's the challenge in the speaking business, that people want you to speak for free. But you do, and it's different than most industries in that you have to in the beginning, because first of all, you have to get yourself visible. But just because you're speaking for free doesn't mean you can't get value. So, first of all, we don't want to say that we're speaking for free because we have value. We want to say we're waiving our fee for you.
Oh, I
And
love that. Say that again. We are
you don't want
waiting.
to say
Yeah.
you're speaking for free because we have value. You want to say, I'm waiving my fee for you. And that comes from Lois Kramer. I cannot take credit from that. Lois Kramer is the author of Book More Business, and I consider that the Bible of professional speaking. So
Lois
she,
Kramer. Okay, good to
yeah, she
know.
has a lot of wisdom. I recommend that book to anybody who wants to be a speaker. So it's Book More Business, Make More Money Speaking. She just came out with a new edition last year. So she talks about this. So if you're going to speak and waive your fee, then what you want to do is say, hey, can I get photos? Can I
Yep.
get videos? Can I get testimonials? You
Yeah.
want to get those speaker assets so that, again, you can build that social proof, that credibility, and you want to test your material because honestly, you might think, hey, I've got the greatest speech in the world. And then people aren't laughing where you thought they would laugh. They might be laughing in places that you thought, oh, I didn't realize that was funny. Or they might not react to things the way you want them to react. So
Right.
it's really important to test it. But the thing is, you also don't want to get stuck speaking for no fee for years and years either. So that's where a lot of speakers struggles. How do I go from no fee to getting paid? And it's about the value that people see in you and that you have to solve a problem. It's not about, oh, I'm good. I know how to deliver and I look great on stage. No, it's you have to solve a problem. That's what people want. Is they're not paying you to be on stage. They're not paying for great delivery. That's expected these days. Long gone are the days that, hey, I'm entertaining, I'm going to get paid for that. They don't hire the motivational speaker again unless you're Les Brown or Tony Robbins. But for your up and coming speakers, they're not going to hire you for that. What they're going to hire you for, especially in this economic environment, is what problem can you solve for me and how can you transform my audience? That's a big ask, and that's why a lot of speakers will offer consulting and coaching and aftercare programs because you're really not going to change people's lives in a 45-minute speech. But what you can do is open the doors for them. Oh, okay, I didn't think of it this way, or oh, I want to learn more. So that's what it's about these days because we see in the news there's tons of layoffs, AI, everybody's uncertain what's going to happen.
Right.
Corporations are tightening their spending on training and speakers. So you have to be able to prove to them that, hey, I can solve a problem for you. And you want to solve either money, efficiency, time, productivity, something that is tangible. And there are lots of topics that can do that. And in fact, I just saw right before our call on LinkedIn, they were posting some of the topics, AI, of course, because that's the new hot thing,
Boy, is it. Yeah.
storytelling and sales, mental health. Leadership is always going to be a hot topic, but you have to differentiate yourself from
Right.
literally the other hundreds of thousands of people who speak on leadership. So there are still hot topics that you can solve, but you have to prove, how am I different than all the other 100,000 leadership speakers you could book? What am I going to do for you? It's not about you. It's not about your delivery. It's about what you can give to them and how you can solve their issue.
So well said. I love that so much. And I started out speaking on the college campuses. So I talked about really heavy topics, eating disorders, drug, alcohol, sexual assault. I would use humor to keep the college kids awake and engaged, but I solved some pretty heavy problems. And they liked it that I was funny and motivating and relatable, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you've got to solve something. And another thing I think sometimes I'm going to ask you. So, I had a pretty heavy story, lots of addiction, lots of assault growing up, lots of things, right? Things that should never happen to a little girl. And I've done a lot of work and I'm so grateful that I'm healed and blessed and can help people now. But people would compare their stories to mine and they'd be like, oh, I don't have a good story like yours. And I would say, just because you don't have as much trauma as I did doesn't mean you still haven't overcome things. So, one of the things I think is good to remind people about is you don't have to been kidnapped and almost killed by your ex-husband or overcome a snake bite in the rainforest in Brazil or whatever. You don't have to have a super tragic story in order to have a really good overcoming obstacles story. Would you agree, Julie?
Absolutely. So, Matthew Dix, who is the author of the best storytelling book I've ever read, Story Worthy, has gone through a lot of stuff. He was homeless at the age of 18. He was arrested for a crime he didn't commit. He almost died a couple of times. So he's been through a lot of stuff. But what he will say is where people connect with him are the stories he would tell about getting his kid to eat vegetables, or
Right.
the really small things that everybody can connect
Struggles.
with.
Yeah.
So even though he's gone through these really horrific things, and he will talk about it occasionally, that's not where people connect. So if you've gone through something traumatic, then look at the aspects of it. Okay, where would people connect? How would they understand what I'm going through? Because it's the emotion behind the trauma that people can understand.
Right.
So
It's the
even though they,
identification, right?
yes, but it's really the small everyday stories where people connect. And that's why a lot of coaches will recommend to people keep a story file, because things that you don't think much of and that you'll forget in a week are where people are going to connect with you. Everybody can connect with the bad boss or the hard job or,
The
you know,
tough
certain,
coworker.
yeah, certain failures that we all go through, the heartbreaks that we go through in romantic relationships, family troubles, that's where people can connect. So even if you do have a great story, which, unfortunately a lot of people have, because a lot of us do overcome trauma, then look for the emotion behind it so that you don't turn people off. Don't assume people's stories. And at the same time, you have to be careful too,
Right.
because you don't want to trigger
Right.
somebody in your audience with your trauma as well. And the other thing is, don't use the stage as therapy. They talk about this all the time. You want to speak from your scars, not your
Oh
wounds.
my gosh. You want to speak from your scars, not your wounds. Amen. Yes. Yes.
And I think, especially in these days when we're honestly all have gone through trauma in the last 5 years, that opening up and being vulnerable about what we've gone through is important. So if you do have that story, I think it is important to share it. Just realize, first of all, you don't want to trigger people. You want to
Right.
make sure you're healed from it, and look at the common emotionality and don't assume. Never say all or everyone has gone through this, because that bugs me.
Ew.
I had somebody who said, you have been successful in your life and you've earned hundreds of thousands of dollars and now you want to move to the next level. And I'm like, maybe you haven't. So that's where operative words like maybe or you want to incorporate that, because you don't want to have objection in your audience's mind immediately. You don't want, because they'll just shut off and they won't listen to another word you're saying. So don't assume anything about where your audience has been or where they're going through. And unfortunately, right now, you can pretty much bet somebody in your audience is grieving. Somebody in your audience is having a really hard time. So just be mindful of that when you're speaking, and you want to be compassionate and empathetic from your story as well. But just realize people are hurting and you want to connect with them. And once they feel heard and understood, then change can happen and you can lift them up. But
So
you
good.
have to be very careful and never do all nothing when you do your talks, because you don't know.
You don't know. I love that. And yes, and this is my podcast, so I'm open with my story. But obviously, if I was going to speak in a corporation or in a professional setting, I would not mention, I would put it a different way. And I always tell people, you get to decide how much you want to share. Because some people they're like, I don't want to go there. And I'm like, okay. It is all about like crafting. I love the everyday stories and helping people identify with the emotions. That's really what it's about. In AA, they talk about that. They would tell me when I was new, don't compare, but try to identify with the feelings. And I just, so many great things about the 12-step world. Julie, another thing I see is sometimes people just want to go hang out with other speakers, or they'll pay a lot of money to get a speaker directory, but then they're competing with all the other speakers who are in this directory for one spot. So I always tell my clients, go find event bookers, go hang out, go develop relationships with the people who actually could book you. Do you agree? Can you expand on that?
Speaking is a huge relationship building business, and I'm going to be a little unpopular here. I don't really believe in a lot of the paid services. I think there is many ways, especially with AI now, that you can find your own engagements. Oh, trust me, there'll be plenty of people who want to sell you their systems. Oh, my system, we can go get you we'll apply to 2,000 gigs a month for you, and all sorts of things. Be careful, especially when you're beginning. As you go along, then ask established speakers what's worth it, what's not worth it. Don't just invest. Be careful, because there are lots of people who are willing to take your money. But one thing that you really want to do is build relationships, not only with event planners, but with other speakers. And contrary to most other businesses, with speakers who speak about the same topic you do. Because you might view them, they're my competition, Julie. Why the heck would I want to build a relationship with them? Because speaking is a different industry. If you get booked for a great conference, they're not going to bring you back no matter how awesome you are the next year. Most likely. There are a few exceptions to this, but they want butts and seats. So they're going to bring somebody different because they want to attract people to buy tickets to the conference. And they'll be like, but I saw Elaine last year. I knew she was awesome. I want to see somebody different. If you're friends with Elaine and you knock it out of the park, Elaine will be like, hey, I know this great speaker that would be wonderful for your conference. So you want to be referable. And the way you're referable is by building relationships with other speakers and referring them first,
Mm.
because then you've got the law of reciprocity working in your favor. What's really important to build relationships with other speakers, first of all, it's a lonely business. Second of all, you want to learn from their expertise and have them learn from yours. And third, you want to be able to refer each other. So yes, it's great to establish those relationships with event planners too. And what I always suggest to people, cold outreach is hard. I was reading in one sales book that it takes, I think it was 20 to 50 touch points
Oh my God.
for a completely cold
I
outreach
just
for
got
sales.
really tired.
That's a lot of work. So what you want to do is you want to build the relationships and add value, because that's what sales is. It's building relationships and adding value. That's all it is before the conference. You want to get yourself top of mind and keep top of mind by adding value. Come up with some resources, create newsletters, have valuable posts on LinkedIn, connect with them on LinkedIn, and for God's sake, do not pitch them as soon as you connect with
Oh,
them.
please. If I get one more, I've just gotten to where I'm just like, do not try to sell me anything. It's, yeah, it's so rude. So rude.
People don't understand sales, and honestly, I'm sorry, there's no excuse for it right now. There's so many books, there's so much stuff out there that teaches you how to sell for free. You can borrow from the library. There's no excuse. It's about building relationships, adding value. You do that, you're not going to have as much difficulty when it's time that you want something. And again, what you're doing again is you're providing value, you're solving a problem. So a lot of people think, oh, I can't sell myself. Well, you're not selling yourself, you're
Right.
selling a solution to a problem.
You're selling your
and if
value.
you
Yes.
and if you reframe it as you're doing them a favor because they have a pain point and you have a solution, then that takes the icky factor out of it that a lot of people are scared about sales. But honestly speaking, is not about speaking, it's about sales first. David Averin, who is a well known NSA speaker, he always says speaking is not the business, getting the gigs is the business. And a lot of people don't realize that when they get in the speaking world, is that you're going to be spending 90% of your time marketing, outreach, follow up, relationship building, and 10% speaking.
Wow. Sobering, sobering, but good. And if you are a coach, author, expert, and you just want to grow your business, speaking for free is absolutely okay.
Absolutely, it
I think
is.
it's good to say, you know what? This sounds like a whole other career, which it is. It's a whole other income stream. And for a while, I had to put my speaking on the shelf because I was just so busy caretaking and coaching. And I just knew, okay, that's just going to go over here for a minute. And it's absolutely okay to be like, you know what? I don't want to do all this extra work and just go speak for free, which I do all the time. I love speaking and I love lifting people up. And I'm trying to practice discernment because I need to get back to the paid thing too. Julie, you were just dropping so many golden nuggets. I just went after our conversation, I was like, I have to stay connected with this woman and we are going to be working together in the future. And I'm going to be sending you more people because I just feel like you're very pragmatic. There's no smoke up your ass. There's, and yes, it's competitive. And being a professional speaker is also rewarding. Yes, it can be lonely. I definitely had a few nights in my hotel rooms by myself, tired, exhausted, and but I've also gotten to go to some amazing places. Haven't you? Like, I've spoken in 44 states. I've been to places I don't need to go back to North Dakota, but I've been.
Yeah, to go back to your statement about, hey, if you want to be a coach or you're trying to feed a different side of your business, absolutely, speaking is a great way to go. I have a friend who is fantastic on stage, and she spoke for the Project Management Institute, and they don't pay or they don't pay much for engagements. However, she knocked it out of the park so much, it fed her coaching pipeline. So that's what I always tell people is please do not treat a no fee engagement, oh, they're not paying me, so I don't care, because you don't know who's in the audience.
You never
You
know.
don't know. I've heard so many of my speaker friends say, I got this great engagement out of a no fee engagement. You have to treat every time you step onto that stage as a privilege, that you're adding value to them. They're spending their valuable time to listen to you, so you want to knock it out of the park. And how that's going to benefit you is word of mouth, because that is the best marketing
Right?
you could ever have.
It's
It's
so
not the
true.
fancy website. I have another friend who is a multimillionaire from speaking. He was in sales first, and he's, my website's not fancy. He
Right?
doesn't get his business from that. It's because he has a really unique personality in delivering, and he delivers value, and he understands the relationship building part of sales. And
Right.
that's what he teaches, is how to build relationships.
I love
So
that, Julie. And I want to speak to that too, because as a comedian coming up in New York, you do a lot of like basement open mics for three people, five people, but it prepares you for the crazy stuff that happens out on the road. Because sometimes you have a warm, slightly tipsy audience and they're tightly packed in. That's a hot crowd. And you can think, oh, I'm hilarious. I'm so killing it. And then sometimes it was a really hot crowd. You're good. You know what I mean? So I'm so grateful I came up that way because it helped me be versatile and bulletproof, as my ex comedian boyfriend used to tell me. But also, yeah, as a speaker, even if you're like, oh, I thought there were going to be 500 people and there's five, you never know. And you don't want to phone it in. I've
never.
gotten amazing things from smaller audiences and also the gift of being prepared. So I was asked to speak about quitting smoking on a college campus in Queens. I've never smoked, but I did all this research because I wanted to be prepared. And and it was horrifying and inspired. Like some of the we had doctors recommending cigarettes and dentists. Are you kidding? But I went and I was so over prepared and I had so much stuff. And they were like, Elaine, the other speaker, something happened. Can you stretch? And I was like, yep, I got it. And so that's another thing. You need to be flexible because so many times they're like, you know what? We're running tight. I know you're supposed to do 30. Can you do 15? And you want to be able to say, yep. And that's when you still do the opening and the closing and you pull out some of the middle. Or, oh my gosh, somebody didn't show. Can you stretch? Yeah. How
Mhm.
much time do you need? And that takes practice. That takes mastery. That takes working with somebody like me or Julie. However, booker will love you and be so grateful, and they will probably put your name all over the place because you saved their butt. Do you want to add to any of that?
You need to be easy to work with. You hear these horrifying stories, certainly in the music world, about how difficult people are to work with. In the acting world, they're divas. But in the speaking world, it's a
Don't be a diva.
privilege.
Yeah.
And you need to be very easy to work with. Do they give you a deadline? Submit the paperwork before the deadline. You
Yes.
know, be prepared, and for God's sake, be on time, so you're not the reason that the other speaker has to cut their time. Because you do that, first of all, the other speaker will remember that. For other events, event planners talk, and they're going to be upset with you, so that's going to hurt you on there. So practice with the timer. That's where Toastmasters is really handy,
Yeah.
is make sure you are within that time,
Know your
because you
time.
never want to be that speaker that causes another speaker to have to cut their material. So be very easy to work with. Let them know when you get there. Let them ease their minds. Offer to help. I'm sorry, you're not too good that you can't help set up, or you can't help chairs, or you can't help them with other things. Being a meeting planner is one of the most stressful jobs. I
Yeah.
mean, there is always something that goes wrong, and you
Yeah.
don't want to be the reason for their stress at all. So think, put yourself in their shoes. What can I do to make their lives easier
Yes.
every step of the way?
I love that. And one of the things is I have a checklist, right? So make sure everything's charged. Bring your own dang water. Don't expect that if it's there, sweet. If it's a super duper green room, awesome. But that's not always the case. And another thing is, yeah, I text them I'm here, blah, 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 blah. And then I don't like sitting around because I get tight and constricted. So I will tell them I'm going to go walk around backstage, or if they don't need help. And I will say, I'm here, but I'm just going to be over there, because that way they're not going, where'd she go? What? I need to ask her a question. Have your intro printed out, even laminated. Keep it simple. Like there's a million tiny nuances. Anyway, Julie, I think we're going to have to do a part two because there's so many things I forget that I know, and you've helped remind me of all the things that I know. And part two, maybe we'll do something about what's the worst mistake you've made. So if people want to know more about you, how do they find you? What's the easiest way?
LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. So Julie
And are
Cooley,
you Julie Cooley? Okay.
Julie Cooley.
Cooley. I'm going to have that in the show notes too. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your expertness. You're so authentic and real, and it's just refreshing in this crazy business because there's a lot of people who unfortunately are not. Anything you want to say, parting words?
Just be careful out there because again, there's so many people who want to take advantage of you as a speaker who will promise you the world. And there are some legitimate people out there. So you don't want to, it's not all or nothing, but I highly recommend the National Speakers Association. Most chapters will let you visit for free for the first meeting, check it out. But even if you don't join NSA, surround yourself with other speakers who are above what you're doing because that will elevate you and then help other speakers as you grow in your speaking career and ask them because most of us have made mistakes in investing in the wrong things or have heard and you don't want to make those same mistakes, so don't. You have surround yourself with a network so that you can say, hey, I'm thinking about this, or this sounds too good to be true, what do you think? And so you can get that experience and ask multiple people. That way at least hopefully that their mistakes can save you from making the same ones.
I love it. I love it. Thank you, Julie, so much. And I look forward to working with you and connecting and doing a part two. All right, everybody. Bye. Take care. Thank you.